Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Hello, my name is Leah Knoll. If you don't know who I am, I'm the principal interim here at St. Lawrence. And I just want to thank you all for coming tonight as we have a representative from Protect Young Eyes here to speak to us about digital media and cell phones and all the things that we need to celebrate, but also make sure to have restriction and boundaries in place for our children and for ourselves as well. We'd like to start the evening with a word of prayer, so if you could bow your head and pray with me, please. Dear Lord, we thank you and praise you for all the wonderful gifts that you've given us. Lord, with all of these gifts, you've also given us wisdom, you've granted us strength, and you've granted us perseverance and discernment. We ask you to help us to use those skills and use those gifts to best parent, grandparent, and guide the children that you've entrusted us with. Please help us to help them see you in all they do and each day. Lord, you are the constant, you are the truth, you are love, and we need to make sure that our children know that they are made in your image, that they are made to be loved and to love others, and they have a purpose, and they have a future with you in the new creation. We ask your blessing on our evening tonight, and we ask you to open our hearts and our minds so that we're able to absorb the information and use it to the best for our students, for our children, and their grandchildren. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Mr. Dan Armstrong is a representative from Protect Young Eyes and is here for the presentation today. Dan worked 10 years as a television news anchor and reporter for 2 Michigan NBC stations. You may recognize him. He also spent 4 years directing marketing and communications for a public policy think tank. He's taught news writing and TV studio production for Lawrence Technical University, speech for Mott Community College, and the media track for the Student Statesmanship Institute. For the next 6 years, he led public relations for Covenant Eyes. Dan has been featured in the Detroit News, Lansing State Journal, Chicago Tribune, National Review, and other media outlets. Dan has been married to his wife Amber for 15 years. They have 5 children, 4 girls and 1 boy. He enjoys running, playing classical video games, binge watching shows with his wife, connecting autographs of famous people, and Slurpees. You do have a 7-Eleven down the road.
Okay, I'm there.
So let's welcome Dan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leah. I got this. All right, thank you so much. It's great to be here today. When I pulled into the parking lot, one of the parking lots, I made sure to take a picture so I can get back to my car when I'm done. This place is huge. How many acres is this? Anyone know offhand? A couple hundred? So before we even started, all right, so I parked in the parking lot, one of the parking lots. I ended up in the gymnasium. And then I asked, okay, where's the Protect Young Eyes presentation? So about 10 minutes later, I get over here. It takes quite a way to walk over here. And then when I get here, I said, okay, can I go to the restroom real quick? And they're like, okay, which one do you want to use? You want to use the one over there? You want to use the one backstage? I'm like, I guess I'm closer to this one. So I'm a little nervous to even ask for water because you'll probably say bottled, tap, distilled, which one? Evian, what kind of products do you like? So I really enjoy talking in front of people. Most people don't. So 75% of people have what's known as glossophobia. For my Latin lovers, what does glossa mean? Anyone know? Tongue. Glossa means tongue. Phobia means fear. So fear, tongue, fear of public speaking. More than 75% of people have that. So you think about it, the top 3 fears globally, number 1 is public speaking, number 2 is dying, and number 3 is like heights, so skydiving, bungee jumping, those kinds of things, which I find fascinating because if you think about it, you have public speaking's number 1, dying's number 2, heights is number 3. If you go to a funeral, most people would rather be in the box than the person talking about the person in the box. Isn't that weird? I think that's kind of interesting. So anyway, I do not have that. I really enjoy talking in front of people. So one of the things that we talk about is presenting and being in front of people, talking, it's a lot of fear for people. I don't have that. A lot of things that I do enjoy. Most of the classes I took in college were speech-related, technically for TV, radio, production, editing, writing, those kinds of things. But out of all of the things that I did in college, one of my favorite classes of all things, you would never guess it, was a first responder class. You're like, wait a minute. I'm not a first responder anymore. I'm not certified. It's lapsed. And I'm not anywhere in the medical field. But for some reason, I really enjoyed that first responder class because I knew that if anything had happened, if anything happens even like here, if someone stops breathing, if someone's heart stops, if someone's choking, if someone's injured, I can do all I can in my power to remedy the situation and to help the situation. I've been trained not to panic. I've been trained to know what to do. And will the person always have a good outcome? Not always, as we know with medical things. But I just feel confident that even if something tragic happens, I feel confident and prepared to address that. I want you to feel the same way after this presentation. I know oftentimes we feel overwhelmed. We feel like there is so much technology out there. How can we keep up with all of these things? It's going at breakneck speed. It's going at light speed. And how can we catch up with these things? And our kids are so addicted to a lot of these things. And there's a big cultural pull to do all these things. But I want you to feel prepared for all of this. You may be feeling like this right now. So you come into something like this, the whole world's on fire, and you're just sitting there with your coffee just saying, it's fine, everything's, thank you so much. That was a joke, but I got my water, thank you. What I'd really like, no, I'm just kidding. So thank you so much for that. But you may be feeling this way, and most people are, and you're justified in feeling that way. So I give you that permission to feel like, wow, I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose here. But we're going to give you so much here that you will feel prepared. We're going to give you a guide map, those kinds of things to move forward. So Protect Young Eyes, let's talk a little bit about us. So oftentimes parents are afraid of what their kids might experience online. At PYE, our research, education, and advocacy give families practical solutions so that they're prepared, balanced, and protected online. And since 2015, and after more than 1,500 presentations around the world, we've done Sweden, we've been in, I think, almost every state, including Alaska. We've watched digital creep into the lives of our children in both marvelous and malignant ways. I'm glad Leah pointed that out in her prayer. These are wonderful technologies, but they can also do a lot of harm. Let's harness them for good. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, "The test of morality of a society is what it does for its children." That next generation, what are we doing for them? Are we equipping them? Are we preparing them? Are we training them well? Or are we throwing up our hands and saying, well, we don't understand it, they're going to have to figure it out? I remember my grandparents, my paternal grandparents, were my neighbors growing up. And whenever I'd go over there, I would always see my grandpa either had the VCR unplugged or he had some electrical tape over where the time was. Do you know why that was? Couldn't stand a blinking 12, exactly. So he'd either unplug it or and I said, Grandpa, it's okay, I know how to set this. So whenever this happens, just let me know. I'll come over, I'll walk over and set this for you. But he just checked out. He's like, I don't want to see this thing flashing 12, so I'm either going to put tape over it or I'm going to unplug it. Let's not do that. Let's be involved. This is not my family. It's a picture of my family. It's my only dad joke. Just give me that, please. Thank you. Okay, we're done with the dad jokes. So the ugly guy in the back, you know who that is. Right in front of me is my wife, Amber. And the introduction's a little bit old because it's been 16 years as of this month. So we've been married for 16 years. She is the oldest of 11 children. Same mom and dad, no twins, did it the hard way. Her mother had the last child at 46 years old. Her dad was 50. 5 brothers, 5 sisters. People ask us, would you like to have that large of a family? And I said, well, I think we started too late. I don't think we physically can. I was 28, she was 26 when we got married. If we adopt or foster, which we would love to do, we could have more. But here's what we have right now. So my wife, Amber, she teaches water aerobics at our local health club. And she teaches and plays cello and piano. To the your far right is our oldest daughter, Ashley. She's 15. She's taking driver's training. Pray for us. She's doing great. She got our 15-passenger van stuck over the weekend, but I was able to use a lot of things that I learned in these presentations because I wasn't there, and my wife said, Ashley just got the van stuck, and we don't think it's going to come back out, and it's not working right now. And I'm just like, I just texted her. I said, I'm glad you're okay, honey. Previously to this, I may have said something else, but because of this, I'm in a much better place, and I hope you are too. So Ashley also teaches at the club. She teaches baby classes and also a beginner swim. She plays the cello and piano. Right in the middle, in between myself and Ashley, is Aubrey. She's 13, and she's now taller than Ashley. And she takes advantage of every opportunity to let her know that, and it drives Ashley crazy, because I think they're both probably done growing. Aubrey plays the flute, and she plays the piano and the viola. Right in the middle is Amelia. She plays the piano, and she plays violin. Her arm is around Duncan. He plays Minecraft. Among other things, he also plays the cello and the piano. And then our little live wire, Ayla, she's 5, and she wants to play the drums. We're praying against that. I'm just kidding. No, I want her to make a joyful noise. And she's currently learning the violin, and she also does piano as well. So for those paying attention, did you detect a pattern in names there? So you got Dan, Amber, Ashley, Aubrey, Amelia, Duncan, Ayla. Yep, so Duncan and I are the only 2 Ds on the otherwise all A's report card. And we didn't even plan this out. We have all the phonetic sounding A's. We have and A. If we have another child, they're going to think they're adopted. We have no idea what to name them. We ran out of ideas. So hopefully, if we adopt or foster, if they come with their own name, that would be great. So we don't have to do anything with that. But that's my family. And this is one of the funniest times on TV. Of all the times you try to look your best, there was a fly on the 11 o'clock news. I was just down the road at Channel 25 for 10 years. And you can't swat it away. You just kind of go with it. Kind of like if you're coughing or sneezing, you just kind of roll with it. So someone actually took a picture of that and sent it to me and said, that's amazing. I'm gonna use that. So this is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or NCMEC. This shows advocacy is needed. So this is the central reporting system for online exploitation of children, including child sexual abusive material, child sex trafficking, and online enticement. Very few of these get reported. Very few of the actual incidents that happen. In 2022, so last year, NCMEC received 32 million reports of online sexual exploitation. That's up 89%. In 3 years. Nothing is up 89% in that amount of time. If crime went up by 10%, 20%, if theft went up by even 10%, that would be a huge deal. But just in the last 3 years, reports of sexual exploitation for children is up 89%. We got a problem. These reports include a total over 90 million images, videos, and other files. If we find out that romaine lettuce is tainted, what do? We recall all of it, every single piece of romaine lettuce in the entire country. If cans of Alpo are making your dog sick, you get a half dozen or a dozen reports of those, every single one of those cans gets pulled in the entire country. Something bad happens online with a kid, crickets. Nothing happens. Oftentimes people will say, well, you know, there's so much to the internet, and it's just too difficult to police it. There's no way that we'll be able to control this. For those people, I would challenge them to take an old school DVD of the original Toy Story and try to upload 5 minutes of that on YouTube. How far do you think you'll get? Not real far, because they can, before it even posts, they can detect copyrighted material and pull it. If you continue to test that, then you'll probably hear from Pixar and Disney's attorneys, and you may be on a first-name basis because fines would start coming and they would track you down. So anyone who would say, well, we can't do anything about this, there's too much of this going on, we have spectacular technologies that should be able to catch all these things. We're just not using them, and there's no incentive for them to, unfortunately. At the very bottom, it says, the last thing overworked parents need right now, especially right now, are more complex to-dos, which is what parental controls are. They need child-centric design by default. Here's the inverted responsibility triangle. We live currently on the left side. That's where society is right now. We put the majority of responsibility and that burden on children. We give them a smart device, we give them a tablet, we give them a phone, and we expect good things to happen. But yet we expect people to go through driver's training before they drive a vehicle. In Michigan, you have to have several hours of training to even wash hair, like to be a beautician. If you are going to work at a construction site, you have to wear a hard hat, you have to be trained. We put fencing around buildings that are falling apart. When things are dangerous in the outside world, we do things to prevent problems, to prevent danger, to prevent bad things from happening. But yet in the digital world, that's not reflected. The exact opposite is. So we give our technology, social media to children, expect good things to happen. When things go wrong, not if things go wrong, because when things go wrong, because people are reaching out to kids now, parents may step in, not everyone does, and then if enough parents get upset, they start to call Congress and say, okay, we need more laws, we need better enforcement, and then maybe Congress will have enough pull to actually make big tech do something about this. Things are better when it comes to smoking. We have discovered that smoking has a net negative effect on people. It's addictive and it is harmful for your health. So those who are producing cigarettes are now being held responsible. Philip Morris, they are being forced to have educational campaigns about it, huge warning labels. The same isn't true for big tech that are producing all these things. On the right-hand side is what we would love to be at. So actually, big tech, those who are producing this stuff would be the ones ultimately and majorly responsible for that. That would be wonderful. And if they do step out of line, if something bad happens, maybe Congress steps in and says, okay, we got to make some common sense laws so that people will be more protected because you're not doing a good job as you're producing this and people are consuming this. And then if Congress doesn't create enough of those situations, parents can step in and be that extra layer for them, and ultimately, to the child, they should bear the least amount of responsibility when it comes to technology, but unfortunately, we're on the other side. If we knew that across the street from here, there was a plan to construct a 5-story building that would house the world's largest collection of adult material. So the world's largest adult bookstore is coming to Frankenmuth, Michigan. That was the plan. What would we do? We would storm. I know, it never happened. Thankfully, we're in a conservative area. It would never happen. But if it did, we would be protesting. We would go to City Hall. And if it ever were to be built, we would tell kids, instead of walking by it, walk around it, find another way. We would do all we could to advocate against that. We do not want this in our community. That 5-story building's here. It's probably in your pocket, maybe in your kid's pocket. It's in many young people's pockets. That is the largest collection of adult material in the world has ever known, are in every single one of those devices. And yet, we don't advocate for that like we would a physical building. Our founder is Chris McKenna. He started Protecting Eyes in 2015. This is in 2019 when he testified at a judicial meeting talking about the Children's Online Privacy Act. This is a common sense law that would say for device makers, so for Apple devices or Android devices, when you are setting up an account for someone, if you put in 14 years old, it has parental controls automatically built in and treats the user as a 14-year-old. Right now, that's not the case. If you're 4, 14, or 40, you have the same experience on every single one of these devices. This law would make that opposite. Same thing with social media. If you say you're a 4-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 20-year-old, you're going to have a different experience because one is an adult, the other two are not. Thankfully, it did pass in Utah. The Utah governor did sign it. About 8 to 10 other states are debating that. Hopefully, it'll come to Michigan. Hopefully, it'll come in other places. This was landmark legislation. Finally, some help for families, some common sense. Snapchat just last year, so 2022, in the summer of 2022, Chris was on the Today Show when this happened. Snapchat released its first round of parental controls. We said, good job, it's about time, now let's keep going. That was 2022. How long has Snapchat been around? 2011. For 11 years, regardless of your age, you would have the same experience on Snapchat as anyone else who downloaded it, whether you're a child, teenager, or an adult. When people ask me about Snapchat, I often say, okay, do you want the pad answer or do you want my honest, authentic answer? They say the honest, authentic answer. I said, okay. So when it comes to things like Snapchat, and it's not just Snapchat, and I'm not judging anyone if you have Snapchat or your kids use Snapchat, no judgment here. But I've tried Snapchat. I have downloaded it and tried it for 7 days. My wife did the same thing, using my kids' ages just to see what would happen, and we were sent all kinds of garbage. And I thought, whoa, I'm glad we don't have this because I don't want my teenage daughters, I don't want my 8-year-old son, I don't want any of those to see something like this that's happening. But it's not just Snapchat, it's any technology that is undoing the training that I'm teaching my kids. So the training is, you reap what you sow. Actions have consequences. But what Snapchat is training kids to do is, hey, you can act any way you want, and there are no consequences, because it all disappears. So you can bully people, you can send nasty pictures to people, you can say or do whatever you want, and since it is erased, there's no problem. So you can act any way you want. Any device or any software that tries to do that to my kids, here's what I think of Snapchat. And I'm a nonviolent person. If Snapchat were a personification, like if Snapchat were a person, I would punch them in the face until they fell to the ground, and then I'd switch to my non-dominant hand once this one got tired, and I would continue kicking them while they're on the ground, and then I would cut Snapchat in 7 equal pieces and bury each piece in a separate continent so that Snapchat could not respawn. And then people are like, well, what do you really think of Snapchat? That's about as graphic as I can get. I do not like Snapchat, and my kids don't do Snapchat, and that is the reason why. This is a technology presentation, so I recommend taking your phones out. I don't get offended at all if you're taking pictures, taking video, whatever you'd like to do. Please take out your devices, take pictures of these things. This is the download. I'd like you to get this QR code. So this is more than a newsletter. It will update at least once every 2 weeks on the latest tech trends and technologies. So if you have a question about something, these will usually answer your question before you even are able to ask it, because it is on the very cusp of things. And oftentimes, we will get technology early, we'll get apps early that we can test, and we get devices that we can test so that we can give reviews of these things, whether it's Be Real or Snapchat or Among Us or any of those things, TikTok. We have ways of getting to those things, and we have reviews on them. Yes, go ahead.
What about notifications of current trends?
Yes, 100%. Thank you. Deuteronomy 6, 5 through 9. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words that I command you shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children and shall talk of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way and when you lie down and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. This is what we should be doing, but technology is doing a much better job of it. This is the marketing plan for Apple, Google, Facebook, X, which used to be Twitter. Because look what they're doing. Teach them diligently. They're being instructed. Talk to them when you sit in your house. Spring break now is just kids sitting at home on their devices. When we were growing up, it was we went outside, we rode our bikes, we would hike, we would do all kinds of things. Now they sit around the house. When you walk by the way, when's the last time you saw a young person walking down the road without a device in front of them? It's rare. It's a rare occurrence. When you lie down and when you rise, what's the last thing people do before they go to bed? Check their device. First thing, usually there's an alarm on that device that wakes them up, so it's the last thing that they look at. It's the first thing that they look at. As you bind them as a sign on your hand, that's kind of creepy. It's right here. Frontlets between your eyes. Tech is doing such a better job at this. It is in front of our kids so much more than Scripture, and that's unfortunate. We should be doing a much better job at connecting with them on the non-digital level, because digital has taken over all this time. Yes, we need to guide, pray, and beg for the hearts of our children, but don't forget the practical. We're experts in the practical solutions, and you'll be hearing about both of those. Our position on phones and social, and this sometimes steps on toes, but that's okay. Hashtag delay is the way. We believe kids should wait until high school to get a smartphone. We believe kids' brains aren't ready for social media before age 16. And a lot of people would even debate that, say, I want to keep it even before that. Imagine all those years of social media not forming their minds as they're developing. Imagine all that time with you, giving them scripture, giving them real connection. We're finding even junior high students have a very difficult time when they go to a restaurant to order food because they're so used to using a kiosk, or they use an app, or they do a DoorDash or Uber Eats. They don't experience sitting down somewhere and talking to someone ordering food. Yeah, go ahead.
This is maybe a typical brain.
Sure.
We do have neurodivergent brains that
Yes.
are sometimes lagging behind 2 to 3 years. And if you factor in the things that have happened during the pandemic, educators are saying kids' social, emotional development are lagging even years behind because of the pandemic. So I don't even know if this is accurate for today's kids right now.
100%. And younger people have mirror neurons that are more pronounced than someone. So the idea of reality and fantasy.
Autism, ADHD,
Sure.
their brains are very different and have a very different response to all this kind of stuff than, I'm going to say, a normal brain.
Sure. Good point. And we'll talk more about that too. Take a picture of this or write it down. No middle school child is a better version of themselves emotionally, spiritually, relationally because of the presence of social media in their life. When you're saying, I don't want to be that family that delays all this, and my kids are begging me to get smart devices and social media because all their friends do, and our family's so weird because of all this thing. It's okay to be weird. I give you permission to be weird. There's no problem being weird. It is totally okay to be weird. No middle school child is a better version of themselves emotionally, spiritually, relationally because of the presence of social media in their life. Oftentimes, so let's take, for instance, Instagram. Instagram, especially for young women, causes quite a bit of anxiety and nervousness among them because Instagram is quietly whispering to them, "You're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough." They see someone else's picture, it's getting comments and likes and being shared and being promoted. They put something on and there's not much that people interact with it, so they just take it down. It's like they don't even exist. I was giving a presentation in Iowa, and when I was there was a Rotary Club meeting. And in that Rotary Club meeting, there was a gentleman who had attended every single Rotary Club meeting for the last 50 years. I have not done anything for 50 years. And this guy has attended all the Rotary Club meetings for 50 years. So he gets this award, and we all think it's really cool and everything. But let's translate that to social media. Let's say this guy, he gets to wear this medallion with a big number 50 on it because he's attended 50 years worth of meetings. So he walks around, people are like, "Well, that's impressive." They pat him on the back, they shake his hand, they get a picture with him. And then I walk around and mine says 2. Am I going to keep walking around with that? No, this is embarrassing. That's what Instagram's doing. Other people are comparing themselves to others, and it's like, why do I even bother? Why do I even? And so they get all that kind of anxiety. The amount of anxiety and depression and those things that are going on for our kids today would have been enough to institutionalize them back in the 50s and 60s. Our kids are going through that right now. You think it's bad being a parent? Try being a kid right now. Very, very difficult. So that's something that steps on my toes too. But it's like, wow, as much as we try to fight against this, that's such a true statement. We know for some that ship has sailed. So therefore, whether you've said no technology at all until a certain age, or slow, where you introduce technology maybe at a younger age or late elementary and then eventually junior high and then finally go more, or you've just said go, here it is. We're here for you. This is the no shame zone. We're the Planet Fitness of social media. But they're judgment-free zone, so we're shame-free. We'll take that. So here are PYE values, how to create a tech-ready home. So we want to model the right behaviors. We want to pursue authentic connection. We want to delay all addictive tech. We want to diligently prevent harm. and to forge strong families. We've noticed something. Families that do certain things persistently and consistently tend to have children who learn to use technology in good, honoring ways. You want to model the right behaviors. Would you want them to use their technology just like you, where you use it, how you use it, and what you use it for? Now, you're the adult, you're the parent, you're in control, and just because you can do something, does that mean you should do something? I have an old school plug-in General Electric alarm clock on my bed stool, and it has a battery backup just in case the power goes out, because that was one of my excuses. Was what if the power goes out? I have a battery backup there too. It used to be my phone waking me up, but I don't want my children to use phones or devices to wake them up in the morning, so therefore I'm going to model that for them. Mealtime, in the car, other times, I don't want them using social media. When there are guests over at the house, I don't want them on their devices. I want them interacting. So we have a basket that we put all the technology in. We want to model this behavior. Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. How oftentimes do they catch us scrolling and we're just like, oh, sorry, I really don't want you guys doing this. We kind of are telling them, do as I say, not as I do. Let's actually model that for them. Colin Karchner passed away at 40 years old. He had a heart condition, but he did a lot of the stuff in the same space as Protect Young Eyes did, and we were very good friends with him. He left us this quote: "Showing your kids you love them is 2% effort and 98% putting down your phone." Ouch. It's so true, though. It's so true. We get so upset with kids. Well, kids these days, they just want to be on their phones. They don't even know how to interact. If the same technology was around when we were their age, we would have done the same thing. We're human beings. We have the same brains. Same thing would have happened. Ephesians 6:4, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord." How we deal with things is how they're going to deal with things. We model, you oftentimes hear, oh, he's got a real, this kid is really angry. Oh, but his dad's really angry, and his grandpa was really angry. All those kinds of things. It's not a guarantee, but oftentimes those things happen. I grew up in a house where my mother was on one side of it, where it was more of the helicopter parent, more of the spying. I want to catch you. I don't care how many good things you did. There's one thing wrong, and I'm going to point it out. You're always living in this fishbowl. You're under the microscope. My dad was on the other side. My dad was the apathetic, checked out, ignored, avoided all these things. So mom was always trying to catch us doing something, and dad was just avoiding the whole thing and didn't even realize that there was a problem there. So in 1987, the movie RoboCop came out. Ultra-violent. It was based in Detroit, where this police officer is busting up this gang, and he literally gets blown away. His hand gets blown off. He's shot with a shotgun several times. He is literally in pieces, ultra-violent. He gets rebuilt, and then he exacts revenge on all these people who did this to him. So in 1987, I was in 3rd grade, and all my friends and I would talk about, oh man, see that RoboCop, it's so violent, and oh, we'll never be able to watch this because we're, in single digits, and you got to be 18 to see a rated R movie. But the interesting thing was all the toys were marketed to the kids. We had all the RoboCop video games, we had RoboCop action figures, so we knew all the things that were RoboCop, but yet the movie itself was rated R, and you couldn't see it. Back then, they weren't even you couldn't really sneak into a movie theater or see those kinds of things. So anyway, that was a point of interest for a 3rd grader like myself, and not too long after RoboCop was in the theaters, it came out on VHS. The way I found that out was I was in my living room, and I was playing with He-Man or Transformers or something at the time. It's 1987, 1988. And I hear something in the other room. It's like explosions and screaming and yelling. Like, what is going on? So I walk over there, and it's my dad sitting on the couch, and on the TV is the VHS copy of RoboCop. And I'm like, whoa. I was horrified by what I saw. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. Heart was racing, tough to breathe, but I couldn't look away. I was so intoxicated by what was going on, and even in my brain I was thinking, I shouldn't be watching this, but boy, my friends are going to be asking, boy, what did you see? What's in the movie? And I'm like, I don't even know what to do. So I stepped back a little bit, Step forward a little bit, I just had this fight with my conscience back and forth. So I kind of soothed it a little way because I would walk in and I got right next to the couch. I'm looking at my dad. My dad's still tunnel visioned on the TV, and I end up sitting right next to Dad. And I just kind of slowly look at him, and it got the better of me, and I said, Dad, should I be watching this? And Dad, in his infinite wisdom, he's passed away since, but he says, you know, son, just because they're doing that stuff on the screen, does that mean you're going to be doing that? And I'm like, no. And he's like, so what's the problem? And we watched the rest of RoboCop. I've never told Mom that. I would have never made it out of the third grade if I had told her that. I should tell her now. Don't do that. Don't be that kind of parent. But also, my dad was an alcoholic as well. My sister, I have an older sister who's 3.5 years older than me, a brother who's 2 years older than me, and a brother who's 2 years younger than me. I'm Peter Brady of the bunch, of the three boys. My sister came home from Christian school. We were Christian educated from kindergarten and for me all the way through grad school. She came home, I remember seeing this scene, and she says, hey, Mom and Dad, I learned a new word at school today. It's, and you can fill in the rest. Dad reeled back to smack her. He goes like this. She pulls back and hits the wall. He's too embarrassed to take a second shot, and before he can, Mom gets in the way and says, I don't know where you've heard that term before, but we don't use that in this house. Was it Karen down the street that you're hanging out with? You're never seeing Karen again. You know what? You're not seeing any friends this rest of this week until we figure out who said that word. Because we don't use that word in this house. Shame on you. Wash your mouth out with soap, all that kind of stuff. What did they train my sister to do? Never come to Mom and Dad again. Because if you're curious about something, if something scares you, if you're fearful of something, if something made you uneasy, gave you that kind of funny feeling, don't go to Mom and Dad. One's going to try to hit you and one's going to scream at you, and now your friends are going to be limited. So don't do any of those things. We can do better than that. One of the reasons why I'm doing this presentation is so that we can do better than that. We're learning from this. Now, my parents tried their best. I give them as much grace as I can because they did the best that they could. That's how they were taught, and hopefully we can break that cycle. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Imagine if that conversation went something differently. Hey, honey, thank you for letting us know that. That is a word that a lot of people are really embarrassed to say. It's a word that people get really squeamish to say. So they had a great opportunity to say, okay, in context, here's what this means, here's how people use it, and this is why we as a family have chosen not to use that. But you're not in trouble because you came to us and you asked a question. We're a safe place. You don't get in trouble for telling us what happened. But she was taught just the opposite, unfortunately. There's a USA Today article in 2020 that talked about, it says, communications time bomb, parents' smartphone use could be the new secondhand smoke. Does anyone remember when you could fly in an airplane and there was a smoking section? Remember that? At that point, the whole plane's a smoking section. There is no non-smoking section. Near Detroit, anyone ever been to the Sweden House? Back in the day, the Sweden House was wonderful. You used to get really good deals as kids, and it was a buffet, but they had, like in their basement area was the smoking section, above was the non-smoking section, so it was like going to the bowling alley. You just stunk when you came out of there. They had really good deals though. But with the same way secondhand smoke happens, and about a third of all kids 3 to 11 years old today, even with all we know about smoking and all the laws against it, still a third of kids experience secondhand smoke in their home. But now they're experiencing something with the smartphone use. They're seeing their mom and dad model the behavior of not being able to control their time on devices. And that is being taught to them. So what they're seeing in their mom and dad, they are emulating. We need regular quality interactions with parents, talking, listening, singing, reading, and playing together. It fuels the children's language development and their acquisition of communication skills. So there was a test that was done called the Still Face Experiment. I would recommend looking on that on YouTube, but it's a little difficult to watch. It's almost like child abuse. A parent, part of this experiment, will be in front of a child. The child will be on a bouncy seat or in a car seat, and the parent will talk to them, will coo with them, will touch their face, will clap their hands, will kiss their feet. So physical and verbal interaction. And then the parent will just deadpan look at them with no emotion, or they take a device, like a phone, and put it between them and the child. In both cases, the child believes the parent has disappeared. Parent's gone. They are so checked out of this interaction, the child gets very nervous, gets anxious, gets nerved up, starts screaming, starts crying. It's like, where'd mom and dad go? If you're training your kid as a child, as they're developing, where mom and dad are here for you, but yet when this phone comes out, it all changes. Imagine multiplying that scene over and over and over and over again from before they can even talk all the way through their teenage years. That's what we're doing to our kids. One way to do it is not only to have them copy what you do, so use your device the way that you want them to. You can co-play as well. This is co-play to the extreme. This is Chris and his son. This is when COVID first happened. So they have 2 TV trays going. Chris is working from home. His son is on the Switch. They both see what each other is doing, and he's got his knees in his chest for good measure. Whenever possible, do technology together. Help them see that online is a we activity and not just a me activity. I would have no idea what Minecraft or Bluey is without my children. We watch Bluey together, we do Minecraft together, we play these games together. They are truly interested in me doing these things with them. I want to be curious enough to see what they're doing, why they're doing it, and I expect them to do the same thing with me. They often ask me, "What are you doing on your phone, Dad? Are you checking your email? Are you checking your social media? What are you doing are you using a calculator? What are you doing?" 3 more practical tips for modeling the right kind of behavior. Post with permission. This is something that, again, you're the parent, you're an adult, you're in control, you're in charge, but just because you can do something, should you do something? Imagine if your kids went around with a phone or a tablet and they took pictures of you all day and posted it on social media. How would you like that? I wouldn't at all. So one thing that you can copy for them is say, hey, you go on vacation or you go to a museum or you're doing something and you take a bunch of pictures of them. And you say to one of your sons or daughters, hey, I took a bunch of pictures. I would like to post at least one of them of you on social media. Which ones of these do you like? And they can look at it and say, oh, wow, I look terrible in that one. That looks terrible. That looks awful. Oh, that one, I look really good in that one. Post that one. So you're training them to post with permission so that when it comes to them taking pictures and putting things on social media, they get trained that you don't just take pictures of people randomly and put them on social media. Start with that. Do they know your passcode? This is especially for older kids. Some of it's for safety, where like if my daughter needs to use my phone for something and there's a passcode, she needs to check something, she has my passcode. It's not because she's responsible for me, but I want to model that, when dad's on his phone, that's not a private activity. It's not something that, dad's doing something that none of the kids should be able to watch or see. I want to copy that for them. And announce your intentions. This was big at COVID too, because when we're all working from home, we trained our kids unconsciously that technology is more important than them. So if we had a meeting, we had a phone call, that trumped everything, and sorry kid, I got to do this, so you just kind of do your own thing. When you're using technology, whether it's during COVID and you're working from home, or you're using it casually, you can say, hey, you know what, I got this phone call, it's supposed to last 15 minutes, or I have a Zoom call, it's going to last 20 minutes. In that 20 minutes, after that 20 minutes, I'm going to take a break from that, I'm going to excuse myself, and I'm going to check in with you. If the meeting's going to go longer, I'm going to let you know it's going longer. If it's ended, I'm going to let you know it's ended, and we're going to do something else. So train them and teach them that technology doesn't rule you, and technology doesn't rule your parenting of them. You're in control. Next one is pursue authentic connection. So how well do you know the heart of your child? Remember, you can't outsmart them with parental controls. But if you capture their heart, you won't have to. They will come to you with questions. You want to get to the point where instead, if they're in trouble, they want to be running to mom and dad rather than running away from mom and dad. It's difficult to do, but it can be done. 1 John 4:19, we love because he first loved us. As much as God pursues us, our love for him is because he loved us. I think for us, we love our children that much as well. We want to create this bridge of trust. So in homes where digital trust is high, digital friction is low. If you were to ask your kids, hey kids, what are some bad words you know? And some of the kids are like, I don't even want to say because I would get in trouble. Why would they get in trouble if you ask them an honest question? Say, hey, what bad words do you know? You're building trust with them. So I remember a family, they said, well, we tried that with our kid and it was pretty funny. The little guy's 4 years old. And they said, hey, Chase, do you know any bad words? Any kids down there, they were saying that? He was like, oh man, they really say bad words. And they're like, okay, all right, don't panic, it's okay. Would you mind telling us what those words are? And he gets all red, and he's like, I don't even think I can say these. And they say, Chase, we give you permission. You're allowed to say the words that they said. And he's like, okay, here we go. Stupid, but. And he goes on, and they're like, whew. Thankfully, it wasn't other words, but he feels safe enough now where even if it was those words, he would be able to tell them and be honest with them. And they've built that trust with them so they don't freak out when he learns these things. You might be wondering, how do I build digital trust with my child? Glad you asked. Does your child know beyond any doubt that he or she can land softly with you? I was speaking to a group of Mennonites last year in Ohio, and after I had mentioned this, one lady stood up, and I just thought, is this normally what happens in Mennonite communities? People just stand up? I didn't know I should have done more research. And she says, can I just interrupt you for a little bit? I said, sure, go ahead. And she said, what you just wrote there was one of the most powerful things my mom did for me. I said, okay, tell me about it. She said, I'm part of All Sisters, and my mom sat down with me, and she said, this is the only lecture that I remember from my mom because it had that much of an impact on me. She said, you know what, girls? She's one of 3 or 4 girls, if my mind serves correctly. She says, you know what, girls? If you are ever drunk, high, in jail, pregnant, or part of something that went really bad, I want you to know that I am a safe place for you to come to. We've got your back. We're in your corner. It doesn't matter what you do or what you have done. You can come to me. And she said, I've never felt more confident in my parents than at that time. And then she thought for a second, and she thought, wow, I didn't think my mom was think that I was capable of doing all those things. But it was great because she had that conversation with her at least once. It's good to have follow-up conversations of that. So with those children in your care, do they know beyond any shadow of a doubt that they can land softly with you, that they can tell you anything, that you can talk about anything? If they don't, you have 48 hours to either remind them that or to tell them that for the first time. That would be wonderful. To explain to them, you know what? When you come to me, you're not in trouble. When you come to me, we can find solutions. I can get you help. If something's going wrong or something's going well, I want you to come to me. I'm your parent. I'm in your corner. Why kids look at pornography, often it's not their fault. Here's why, and here's what to do. Here's one of the QR codes that was mentioned about kids, especially when they have a lot of mirror neurons. When they see something like that, similar to me in RoboCop, you have no idea what's going on. So when that happens for the first time, an explosion of chemicals goes on in their brains, especially these mirror neurons. You got dopamine, you got serotonin, you got oxytocin. All of those explode at once, and there's a bonding agent to them. So it's just like a woman who's breastfeeding her child, and they have that bonding chemical. The same thing happens there, where it's like, I want more of this, I want more of this, I need this connection. So it's a pixel rather than a person that they crave. So imagine when that happens, it's like a volcanic eruption, and as that lava is going down the sides of the volcano, it's carving grooves into the side of the volcano as it's getting down to the valley below. So every time they were to experience pornography or something else tragic like that, they get desensitized to that because they've already wired themselves to want more and crave more and more extreme. So that is something that they create with that first experience. It's traumatic. You can do a lot of things about it if that happens, but oftentimes it's not their fault. Oftentimes it's when they're trying to do homework. A lot of kids are given Chromebooks now or giving school devices, and they're researching things, and whoa, I didn't intend to see that. So practice being calm. Don't freak out, don't freak out, don't freak out. It's not your fault. Be calm, be calm, be calm. One conversation I had with my daughter, oldest daughter, in 2011, the original Minions movie came out called Despicable Me. Anyone remember that? Funny, hilarious movie. And so when it came out on DVD, because we're cheap, we didn't go out to the movie theater and see it. We waited for the movie to come out on Redbox for $1. So I said, okay, honey, let's go watch. And I think she was 3 or 4 at the time. So we're watching the first Despicable Me. I get up to go to the bathroom, and we already had this conversation. I said, honey, there is this thing called pornography. This is a 3-year-old, and 3-year-olds can understand it. There's a thing called pornography. Now, pornography is something, it's either a picture or it's a video where it shows people with little to no clothing on. And if you ever see something like that, if it's on a device, put it down and tell mom and dad. If it's like on a TV screen or somewhere else, leave the room and come and tell mom and dad. So when this, and we even practiced it. Okay, here's daddy's phone. Okay, start swiping. Okay, you see pornography. She puts it down, tells mom and dad, gives us a hug, all that kind of stuff. So watching the original one, and I went to the bathroom, and then I come out, and she's in the hallway already, and she's in tears. And I said, what's the matter, honey? She says, Daddy, I just saw pornography. Like, honey, come here. I give her a big hug, and we go to the kitchen, and I start scooping the ice cream, and I say, honey, you passed the test. When we taught, we already trained for this, so when you saw pornography, you got away from that, and you told mom and dad, thank you, good job. So we're going through this. And I said, well, honey, tell me exactly what had happened. And she says, well, so I'm watching that Despicable Me, and you left the room, and I don't know if you guys remember that part of the movie, where Gru, the bad guy, he's got 3 adopted daughters, and they're pranking him with his presentation. He's got this big legal pad, and he goes, here's the plan. We're going to go fly to the moon. Rip. We're going to shrink the moon. Rip. We're going to take the moon. Rip. And then there's a picture that his daughters drew in crayon of him sitting on the toilet. And he goes, and we're going to sit on the potty. Oh, no, no, no. So it's meant for hilarity. It's meant as a funny part of the movie. But yet Ashley saw that and like, whoa, I don't think that guy's got pants on. So she got away and told mom and dad. I said, honey, you passed. Good job. You did the right thing. Thankfully, if she does actually see the real thing, she knows exactly what to do and go forward from there. So I explained to her that it was mostly meant to be funny. It wasn't meant to be pornographic. But thank you, honey, for being so sensitive that you knew when you spotted something that looked like that, made you feel uneasy, you told mom and dad rather than keeping it inside, because keeping it inside is going to have bad consequences. At PYE, what's the right age to talk to kids about pornography? If you have a number in your head about, I think this is the right age, you may want to take away about 2 years. And I know that sounds harsh. I know that sounds like, ooh, that seems really young. But if you wait until you're ready, it's too late. One of my good friends, when I gave this presentation at our church, he came up afterward and he said, so let me tell you about my experience. I was 16 years old. My dad walks into the room, closes the door behind him, and says, all right, we need to have a talk. And my friend said, if it's about sex, don't waste your time. And in fact, I can probably teach you a few things. Wasn't the right comment to say to him, obviously, but it was a 16-year-old guy. Other friends had said, our son, who was 12 or 13 at the time, part of a Christmas play, and they're singing Silent Night, Holy Night, and around yon virgin, and he's like, Mom, Dad, what's a virgin? The kid's 12 or 13 years old, doesn't even know what that word is. I know we want to protect innocence as long as we want, but we don't want to preserve ignorance. We don't want to prolong ignorance. We want to get to them before they do. So talk to your kids about these things. In context, age appropriate, you can do it. 10 before 10. 10 before the age of 10. Have 10 solid conversations about pornography before age 10. Start at least 2 years before you think that they might need it. And that conversation is a lot easier than what you think it is. It's not this huge conversation that you have to have, and then it's like, ooh, I'm glad that's over. We're never talking about that ever again. You have to continue having that over and over again. One way of doing that is just say, hey, son or daughter, if you were to walk in the woods, and if something like an animal or even a person were to jump from under a tree or from, on the trail, and it really freaked you out and scared you, you would tell mom and dad, right? Of course you would. So the same thing happens when you're using devices. Now, mom and dad will probably be right with you when you're using these devices, but if something does happen to you, or if you see someone without their clothes on, or there's something traumatic happening, or something really violent, or something that gives you that really weird feeling in your stomach, promise me that you'll come to mom and dad, and we'll be able to help you through what you just saw. It's a good, tangible way to get things started with this conversation. 10 before 10, making porn a more normal conversation. Go ahead and take that. That story, I believe, is in this article here. So if you take that QR code, you want to make it normal. You want to, when you make that a bad word, kids are more curious and they're going to Google that word. Bad things will happen if they Google that word. So be their Google, be their search engine for them. I believe that's also in your handout too. I wouldn't recommend taking a picture and posting this because it could be out of context. Make porn the most normal word in your home. It shouldn't be one of those words that's like off limits. I mean, of course, porn is a bad thing and porn should be off limits, but the actual word and the concept to try to keep them away from that shouldn't be something that you prevent. Here's something for Chris said. I'll reverse that just so you can get, here we go.
At Protect Young Eyes, one of the things that we say is 10 before 10. I want 10 porn talks before a kid turns 10. Now, sometimes parents freeze or freak when they hear this, but you'd be surprised what qualifies for a porn talk. Friends, I want drips through their lives. I don't want a PowerPoint with research. I don't want you to drown them with a porn talk. I want it during car time, meal time, together time, or bedtime, car time. You're going down the road. Honey, if you ever see anything that makes you uncomfortable, naked people on the internet, that's called pornography. You can tell me. I'm safe. That's a porn talk. You could be in the kitchen stirring food. They don't even have to be looking at you. Guys, if you ever see anything that makes you uncomfortable, that little funny feeling in your belly, if you ever see it, you'll never freak me out. You'll never be in trouble by telling me. Friends, that's a porn talk. You're tucking them in at night. Just say, honey, have you ever seen anything uncomfortable? Something that bothers you on a screen, a Chromebook, a tablet, even while doing homework. Listen for their response. That's a porn talk. Friends, if they're not rolling their eyes, you're not doing it enough. 10 before 10. That's a porn talk.
One of my favorite examples of Chris, he has drilled this in with all his kids. It's a funny example. They were at Great Wolf Lodge, and he's got a little guy who has Down syndrome. And Grant is a special kid. He and Chris and I interact. Usually he's on the same Zoom call. And he'll wave hi, and he has no inhibitions. But even Grant knows what pornography is. So Chris said that they were at the water park, and they were in the locker room getting changed. And Grant walks up to the full-size mirror, and he walks up in front of it, and he goes, porn, no porn, porn, no porn, porn, no porn. And Chris is like, high five. I mean, he knows. He knows. But he puts a lot of our kids to shame because our kids don't even know it because we have not had that conversation with him. You know, in one part he's laughing, in another one he's very proud because he understands what it means. More practical tips for pursuing authentic connection: be curious but not condemning. Be curious of what they're doing. If you shut them out or if they try to show you something, so it's not just trying to get into their lives and being curious about what they're doing, what they're watching on Bluey or what they're doing on Minecraft. If they actually try to show you something and you're like, not now, I'm busy, then you're training them not to come to you. You want to be curious but not condemning. Practice, practice, practice. Practice with your kids. Okay, if you see something on the laptop, here's the routine. Put it down, tell someone. Put it down, tell someone. Whether it's a device or a computer, put it down and tell someone should be just like stop, drop, and roll. Remember growing up, if you're on fire, stop, drop, and roll. I thought at 44 years old I'd be using that by now. I guess I'm thankful I haven't had to use that. I've never been on fire, thankfully. But this you will have to use. Put it down, tell someone. Because when kids are experiencing something like pornography, they're in tunnel vision, they're panicking, they have no idea what to do. And while on that topic, I usually tell people, I'm 44 years old, and I have yet to have my porn talk or my sex talk with my parents. Now, my dad passed away in 2014, and my mom is in no position to want to talk to me about that right now. We figured it out. You know, we have 5 kids. But oftentimes when I tell people that, they say, me too. My parents never had a conversation with me about that. They just think, okay, as long as they're in church, they're in a Christian school, they're in a good environment, either they're not going to be curious or somehow they're going to stumble upon the right answer. Oftentimes, that doesn't happen. Oftentimes what happens with kids is you have the thinking part of your brain and you have the feeling part of your brain. The feeling part of your brain is 200 times faster than your thinking part of your brain. Don't believe me? Here's an example. In junior high, so 7th grade, we felt exploited because our physical education class included us taking out the garbage for the school, and we hated it. So they thought, we got all these, 7th grade boys that, have to do some kind of physical activity. Let's have them take the garbage out of the school. Like, I feel so, there's got to be child labor laws against this. So we had to go up from the gym, the stairs up next to the bleachers, and remember those really big, they probably still have them, those really big yellow drums with the clear plastic, real thick mill garbage bags. And it was so disgusting because people threw all their garbage in there and all their drinks in there, and you're taking all this, So you package it all up. Then we have to carry these heavy bags all the way back down the stairs next to the bleachers, out the door and to the outside, and then you take a right, and about another 30 yards are where the dumpsters were. You open the dumpsters, throw all the garbage in there. It took several minutes to do. We hated it. Right now, my high school has a padlock on the door in the cafeteria because of this guy. Here's what happened. As we're putting the garbage up, I look over and I see a door, and I'm like, what does that door lead to? So I open the door, and it's the school roof. Like, oh, this is kind of cool. So we go out on the school roof, and we're running around, and we're having a good time. No one's even paying attention to us. And I look over the edge, and I'm like, whoa, look, there's the dumpster. Why don't we just take the bags and go 10 feet and drop the garbage in the dumpsters? Bombs away, woo! So our PE teacher to this day never discovered how quickly we could take the garbage out. He never knew what happened. So now remember what I said, the feeling brain goes 200 times faster than the thinking brain. So as we're putting the garbage in, I'm thinking, why are the garbage bags having all the fun? Why don't we start jumping off the school roof? It's probably 15 feet high. So me and two of my other friends, we line right up to the edge. 1, 2, 3, go. So I land. I didn't stop, drop, and roll, but I tucked and rolled, so I was safe. Second guy broke both his ankles. Third one went so far to the right that he fell right where the teacher's lounge window was. So during the teacher's lounge meeting, you see this person. So they come out, they break all this up. That took care of all the roof jumping. So the thinking brain and the feeling brain. The feeling brain was a lot faster than the thinking brain. And then as we looked over the edge the second time, I thought, okay, it's a good thing we weren't a few feet this way because there were double doors that opened up a lot. And what if we fell off there and straddled one of those? You wouldn't have seen those 5 kids. Let's just put it that way. So practice, practice, practice. Google me. You want to be your kid's search engine if they have a question about something. And this is something that I've even had to learn. So June is Pride Month. And we talk to our kids about Pride Month. Here's what Pride Month means. Here's what people in the community believe, all those kinds of things. If you have any questions, let us know. We have parental controls on devices, and we discovered that our oldest daughter had searched for Pride Month and was looking for articles on Pride Month. And we sat down and said, okay, we saw that on your report you were looking for Pride Month. Why is that? And she said, well, I know what you guys say about it, but I want to see what other people are saying about it. So I did not accurately reflect, or at least didn't talk enough about why other people believe this way or what they believe. So I was giving her one side, what we believe, but I don't think I was representing the other side of what they believe as much. So they're curious, and we had a really good conversation about that. Delay all addictive tech. So delay all addictive tech. 8 years of talking to parents about these critical issues. There's one phrase that we've never heard. So when Chris is giving, he says, Chris, I screwed up. I gave my kid Snapchat too late. It's never happened. Remember, they get one precious childhood. Delay is the way. Delay as much as you can. Philippians 4:8, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What are they consuming? Is it mostly these things, or is it a lot of the filth that you would see on social media? The triune brain, and neuroscientists understand that all these 3 things are working together. These aren't independent chambers. They do work all together. So you have the reptilian brain that regulates thirst, hunger, sexuality, hormones. It answers the question, am I safe? On the limbic system, it's more deep. It's the emotions, the fear, the stress, anxiety, arousal, sexual longing, am I loved? And then the neocortex, that's the complex thinking. What can I learn from this? We want to be teaching our kids mostly that neocortex, but oftentimes as they're developing, the other 2 are getting more use out of that. So oftentimes when something's happening in the limbic system, emotion, fear, stress, anxiety, they don't know what to do. Train them cognitively to come to you. Because oftentimes what would happen is if that happens, like if you're in the woods and that happens, your reptilian brain would take over and you would just start running that fight or flight. There is no long-term risk in not exposing your children to interactive media. Delay is the way is not a no-tech strategy, it's a slow-tech strategy. So all this time you're teaching them this. You're not teaching them anything if you just say, we're just not doing that. We're not doing anything. By taking everything away and being draconian about it, it's not even really realistic in today's world, because oftentimes, even with school, they have to have technology. We want to slowly introduce these things. Here's a position on it. Again, we believe kids should wait until high school to get a smartphone. We believe kids' brains aren't ready for social media before age 16. Here's more tips. Interrupt your kid. We're going to have a video on that. Osprey, I don't know if you're familiar with that. Those are the folks from HGTV. Old school parenting, entertaining young people or entertaining youth or engaging youth is what it is. Wait Till 8th is another organization that believes waiting until they're at least 8th grade to introduce things. And then even if you said no, teach them as if you said yes. Here's another video coming up. Volume ready? Good.
I love interrupting my kids. How rude, right? But when it comes to their technology, I love to interrupt them. I want to do that so I can check whether or not they're hooked on their stuff. And they've known for a very long time that whenever dad asks you to put something down, that's when you do it. And they know the reward from that is that most of the time when they want to play something, video game, whatever it is, most of the time the answer is yes, if they've proven that they're not hooked on it. That looks like this. A few weeks back, Blake was right in the middle of a Super Smash Brothers game, which is like a 3-minute match on the Switch. I was in the kitchen. I said, Blake, dude, I need you to pause the game and I need you to come and help me empty the dishwasher. And you know what he did? He paused it and he put it down. And I said, Blake, good job. That's exactly what I was hoping you would do. Now, as a reward, you don't need to help me. I'm going to do it. And he was like, awesome. Go ahead and keep playing. Because through training, he knows that if he listens to when dad needs him to put it down, whether it's to help or just because I think they've had too much time, if they listen to that, then they know that most of the time when they want to play something, the answer to that question is yes, because they've proven to me that the game doesn't control them. And they also know the consequence from that. If they get mad when I take it away, whatever they're playing is gone for at least a day. I want my sons to figure out how to manage themselves and their neurological responses when it comes to screens. Interrupt your kids. I love interrupting.
So that's something I've done too. Say, hey, let's put our technology away. We're going to help make dinner. And then when they all come, it's like, okay, just a test. You can go back. I'm going to finish dinner here. So if you can practice those things, that'll help. Unfortunately, with today's games, it's brain against the game, so they're already sending push notifications. When I was growing up, you had to buy a physical cartridge and put it in the game. You turn it on, you turn it off. Today's games, oftentimes there's no pause feature. They don't want you to stop playing the game, so oftentimes today's games are teaching our kids to disobey their parents because, oh, I just got one more level to go. Oh, it's a multiplayer game. My friends are counting on me. They're being trained that technology trumps everything, even parenting. And the other thing is, even if you said no, teach them as if you said yes. So train them, let them know what Snapchat is, even if you don't allow them to use it, just so that they have an idea of what's out there. You can download these PDFs. These are at protectyoungeyes.com as well. Get phones out of schools now. There's a lot of campaigns we're a part of, phone-free zones. Do smartphones make kids safer during a school shooting? These are all interesting articles that we have. Diligently prevent harm. So out of the box, most digital technologies and devices are exploitive. We have to hunt for protection. It shouldn't be this way. We talked about advocacy. It's actually the other way around. Everything should be safe by default. We should have to hunt for exploitation. When I was growing up, and probably when you were growing up, we knew where trouble was, and we could look for it, and we knew exactly where to go. Now that is searching for them. That Instagram example of the young women that feel like they're not enough. When I was growing up at 3 o'clock, I left the school, I left the playground, and I left the bully for at least that amount of time. Today, that bully never leaves. They're constantly getting these notifications on their phone. It's 24/7. Everything should be safe by default. We should have to hunt for exploitation, and hopefully it never does happen. Preventing harm means wrapping our kids in multiple layers of protection. So let's start at the bottom and work our way up. Number one, prayer. We should bathe our kids in prayer. We should bathe our families in prayer. That's where we start. And then also we want to do the practical. So we want to have both prayer and we want to have practical. Proverbs 4:23, keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. So relationships, digital trust, modeling and pursuing our kids, relationships and that strong bond will trump technology if they feel safe. We've noticed something. Again, these families do certain things. These are the 5 things that we are talking about, even forge strong families. Next is the Wi-Fi. So it's the most important digital device that you have in your home. Now, we know that you can click off of your Wi-Fi and be on cellular data, but for the most part, most things coming into your home are through the Wi-Fi or through the router. Last time I counted, I have 26 devices connected to my Wi-Fi. You have the refrigerator, the thermostat, the garage door opener, all these things. So it gets quite a workout. Hug and love your router. That's almost serious. Your poor router is the most most used and most underappreciated device in your home. If you don't understand it, then ask your kid to help. That's coaching them. We found out that the best routers, and we've tested quite a bit of them, Griffin is by far the best. You have full control over your home network. You can manage every device on your network from your home. In your home. You can implement parental controls, you can monitor network security, you can keep an eye on your kids' internet activity no matter where you are. So I could be overseas and I could turn the internet off of my kids' devices. We used to do that during presentations and it drove them crazy, so we stopped doing it. We would just say, hey, here we go, we're turning off people's devices here, and they'd have no idea, like, oh, Dad's at a presentation. But you get ultimate control when it comes to this. You can have different accounts that you can create and say, I don't want you online after 8 o'clock. And you can set that. Or I want so much time, and then it turns off. So you have ultimate control with Griffin. We have this ultimate guide to routers. If it confuses you, please take a picture of this. I believe this is also in your handout. But we've tested a lot of both hardware and software. Some are good. There's a lot of ones that are really lacking, that have a lot of holes in them. But this is one of the best ones. So based on your budget, based on your circumstance, based on your kids, you'll be able to find the best solution for you there. So we talked about prayer first, relationships, Wi-Fi, and then device. So we're taking it to the next level. We're starting down wide, and then we're getting more granular. So we're complementing both our router with kid-friendly devices, if you so choose to use these. I am so surprised that there's not a bigger market for this. Because when it comes to smart devices, or just phones at all, you have kind of the dumb phone, the flip phone, so just the talking and texting thing over here. And then you have the supercomputers, so you have your Android devices and your iPhone. And those smart devices are supercomputers capable of landing the Apollo mission on the moon 150 million times simultaneously. That's the technology you have right now. So we have either the horse and buggy that goes a few miles an hour, or the Ferrari that goes 240 miles an hour. These are the things that are in between. This makes sense to go in between here. Phones that were actually made for kids, Gab Wireless and Bark. So if you use the code PYE, you can get a discount on Gab phones. Gab Wireless offers a non-social media, non-internet smartphone and smartwatch. It also has GPS. I teach high school speech as well as one of the dual enrollment classes. And unfortunately, what kids are doing nowadays is they're leaving these at home rather than taking them with them because they know how good they are when they leave. So we're training your kids to actually take these with you because we want to know where you're going. For Bark, these are tamper-proof parental controls. Children can't delete text messages or download workaround VPNs or change the parental controls that you set. So Bark has both a hardware component and a software component. We'll talk about that in a little bit. If you want to scan that QR code, I think it's also on your handout. So if you miss this QR code, it's also in your handout, I believe. And then software. So we talked about router, we talked about devices, now actual software on those devices. So Covenant Eyes is an image-based recognition, so it uses artificial intelligence and image recognition to block pornography. So what oftentimes happens is people will use, I'm trying to think of something, elephanttube.com or whitehouse.com instead of .gov. Those in the past have been pornographic sites, trying to trick people into going to pornographic sites. Regardless of what you put in, Covenant Eyes will block actual images of pornography no matter what the language is, no matter what's put in there. You have the screen time, the hourglass, you have the kite for Android. Those have really good parental controls. Unfortunately, like for iPhone, there are about 30 steps you have to do to get into this, and we have that on our website. And also Bark. Bark's a really good one for text messaging and for social media. So my oldest daughter was part of a group chat with a bunch of other girls from church, and they were having a conversation about would they ever dye their hair purple or pink or green or blue, and one of the kids said, well, my mom would kill me if I did that. It thankfully picked up that word kill and sent it to us as part of the report. And I'm like, okay, I appreciate that. It wasn't in a context of violence or someone going to harm themselves, but I did appreciate that. So if someone were to say something like that, we could have a conversation with both her or someone in that chat. Just go to protectyoungeyes.com. This has all of those information there on all of these things. So relationships, Wi-Fi, device, and location. You want to be in a public place when you're doing devices. These are the 5 things you want to stay away from. I'm sure there are more, but start with these 5. Where kids and adults use technology has a massive impact on how they use technology. So bedroom, sleepovers, bathroom, buses, grandparents' house. I would say basement, outside. There are a few more that just a bad idea to use these. So make sure they know that if they're using devices, that they do it in a public place. These are the 5 most dangerous places that we just said. I believe it's also in your handout, but if not, you can take a picture of that QR code, and that'll take you there. The 5 dangerous places to be online. This is the toxic trio. This is also during COVID. When there's darkness, bedroom, or boredom, there's a high risk. So whether you're 4, 14, or 40, we tend to make better digital choices when we avoid that toxic trio. If you're bored or in a bedroom or in darkness, train your kids not to go to technology if they're experiencing any of those things. And then the very top, or actually to the app level. So little pop quiz here. Anyone know what the top left is? Among Us? Very good. So Among Us is kind of like that old game like Mafia where you play and you try to figure out who the mole is, who's the person working against you. The one in the top middle? TikTok. Very good. And then the one on the upper right? Snapchat. I should have that in 7 pieces. I should just put that and have them buried around the world. The Saturn below that? That's a school app that is quite dangerous right now. We're advocating for more controls. You can put they want you to put your kid's school schedule into this so that, they can interact with friends. And it's like, well, no. Can you imagine predators saying, okay, I know exactly where your kid is every time of the day? Bad idea. Saturn, I believe. Lower left, Be Real. It's kind of obvious. Anyone know what Be Real is? Totally cool if you don't. So what Be Real is, Be Real validates authenticity. So you'll get a ping or you get a notification once a day. And once that happens, you have 2 minutes to upload a photo of what you're doing. So if I got my ping now, I would say, giving a presentation in Frankenmuth, click, and I would post that. So if you miss that window, then people get really anxious and, I lost my streak, kind of like Snapchat. You kind of build on this streak. So Be Real is taking a picture of yourself and posting it of what you're doing at that certain time of day, and you try to keep that streak going. The camera, Instagram, good. The play button, YouTube, and then the lower right, Discord, good. Discord is one of the most popular social medias you've never heard of. Young people love it just in the last year or two. It's kind of what MySpace was intending on doing, a lot of video sharing, a lot of music sharing, very customizable. That's what they try to go for, Discord. Out of all of these, which one is rated 17 and up? There's only one of them. Which one's rated 17 and up? All the rest are like 12, 13. Any ideas? Maybe TikTok, maybe Snapchat. Maybe Be Real. It's YouTube. It's like, wait a minute. I know a lot of kids below 17 using YouTube. There's Disney Kids, there's Disney Juniors, all these things. For some reason, YouTube is rated 17 and above. So obviously, the rating system is broken or it doesn't reflect well. For the longest time, Twitter, which is now X, was rated 4+. How many 4-year-olds do you know can even read, much less do Twitter? So anyway, they're not doing a good job at that. The 7-day rule, we talked about this. Before your son or daughter downloads an app on their device, download the app on your device, create a test account using their age and gender, take 7 days to learn about the app, its features, dangers, etc., to determine if it's appropriate for your child. Here is an example. If you were to go to the Protect Young Eyes website, this is our website for explanations on the app level that control exists. We pretty much do every single one in existence. So most don't really do that good of a job, but there are a few that do pretty well. 3 more practical tips for your family. The iPhone guarded access. You can block the browser. You can turn off AirDrop. There are practical things that you can do. Aren't I a kind parent? Here's going to be another video coming up about that. And then friends with different rules. What do we do about them? Here's next video.
Device is co-owned. That means when they're little kids, we don't buy them their devices. We buy devices that we let them use. For your tween son or daughter, maybe you get them a hot pink Amazon Kindle. You name the Kindle Dad's and Lauren's Kindle so that she knows there's nothing to hide. Technology is a we activity and not just a me activity. When your son or daughter is ready for a smartphone, aren't I an amazingly kind, benevolent parent that I'm letting you use this device while you're here in the house? And even if you've decided to pay for it yourself, whenever we have something that powerful here in the house, we're going to figure out together how I can still be involved. Because whether you are 4, 14, or 40, one-on-one with the internet, we eventually all lose. And trust me, that conversation with your teen son or daughter is a whole lot easier if you plant the seed early. We do tech together.
This is one of the things that we've done well as parents was even if the child buys their own device, each device is co-owned. So it's mom and dad's phone and Ashley's phone, or it's mom and dad's tablet and Aubrey's tablet. Therefore, they don't have that feeling of entitlement of this is mine, I can use it as long as I want, whenever I want, I can take it to my room. No, it's co-owned. It's I need this right now, I can see this right now, at any time we can take it as well. 3 more practical tips for your family. We talked about aren't I a kind parent? Family is everything. Peace in society depends on peace in the family. The best thing for families in childhood are almost always analog and together. Are you prioritizing your family? Oftentimes, people will say, well, what about down the road? You know, they don't have the same rules that we do. Talk to them about that. Say, hey, you know what? It's not that we don't trust our kids, or I don't trust my kid, or I don't trust your kid. I don't trust this technology. So if my kid is at your home, would you mind respecting the rules that we have set up for our kids and not allowing them to look at devices or those kinds of things? Oftentimes those parents are, yeah, that's a good idea. We can actually incorporate that too. But train your child in case someone slips or one of the kids does show them something. Have your child ask, what do you want to show me? Or what is that? Because oftentimes, even younger people, if they say something, like they say a swear word or something, if someone says, what did you say? What was that thing you just said? They get really embarrassed. They're like, I'm not saying that again. But if they have something that's explicit and they're like, hey, I want to show you something, if the kid asks, okay, what is it? They're like, ooh, okay, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. It gives them, and then if they do see it, obviously put it down and tell someone. Psalm 127:3, behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. We need to take our responsibility seriously when it comes to this. In a digital world that is increasingly hostile towards children, our response must be strong and relevant. We want you to be prepared, we want you to be balanced, and we want you to be protected. These are the 5 core values. Model the right behaviors, pursue authentic connection, delay all addictive tech, diligently prevent harm, and forge strong families. Your next 3 steps: the router, the safe place, and the table. So the table is, we allow 7 days free on this. This is a community that you can join. This is a Protect Young Eyes community where you can ask Chris or any of us on the team specific questions. You can ask other people questions. It's 7 days free. If you do it monthly, it's $14 a month. If you do it annually, it's $140 a year. And you get all access to webinars, to exclusive content, and it's something that we just started within the last month. Here's what it looks like online, so you can get various presentations, videos, questions other people have, creating that media plan. You get all kinds of content, and we just started that out. If you're interested in that, you can scan this. I believe it's probably also in your handout as well. We're very active on social media. I know it's ironic because we say a lot of bad things about social media and not to use social media, but if it is there, we're going to use it for good. So look for @ProtectYoungEyes on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And want to end with this scripture, Ephesians 3:20 and 21. Now to him who is able to do far more abundantly than all we ask or think, according to the power at work within us, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. Now we know that he can do more than we ask or think. So when you think this is too much, we can't even start, I don't even know where to start, I'm drinking from a fire hose here, God will give us the strength to do this, and he has got us. That's all I got for you. Thank you for your time today. Is there any questions? We can take the microphone, and if anyone has any quick questions, if some people do have personal questions, and that's okay. If you do, I'm more than happy to talk to you afterward, one-on-one. Sure.
Okay, when it comes to the Bark and Gab phones,
Yes.
is that still recommended at high school age?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yes. Those are training tools. Good question. Yes. Just throw it. No, throw it.
So I want to say thank you. This has been wonderful, but
Thank you.
I really want to ask about AI.
Okay.
And then we've talked about the predators, but let's also talk about like drugs and
Sure.
the fentanyl and the things like that.
Sure.
I'm really concerned about AI.
Me too.
And when we talked about the things you're talking about, they've just thrown it out there, and it's like, oh, let's just see what happens, and it's, I can't think about it too much. And then the other thing I want to advocate, even in this presentation,
Sure.
you've thrown a lot of tech at us tonight.
Sure.
I appreciate being asked my preferred mode of communication. I want to access the information the way I would like to access it. And I do think about how I want to access things, who I want to give access to me, and
Sure.
how I interact. So I would really appreciate that. I don't want to pull out a phone in a workshop and take a picture of a QR code. And I want to advocate for our church as well to ask that question of its members. I really feel that's an important thing we can do in our church.
Sure. That's great. Thank you. You know where the algorithm comes from, where you swipe and you just get excited about what's coming up? That's a slot machine. So the makers of Facebook, now Meta, have admitted on record saying they created that like a slot machine so that you are surprised about what comes. So doom scrolling or like, oh, what's the next catastrophic thing that happens? That's scrolling. Also, TikTok uses amazing AI. If let's say you record yourself doing jumping jacks or just walking, within seconds, TikTok knows if you're right-handed or left-handed. Don't ask me how. I mean, no other technology can do that. It's sure. Image recognition.
We need to realize it's everywhere and how it's being used and the writing. I just think there's so much being thrown at us that we don't even realize.
Sure.
It's mind-boggling.
Couple more? Yeah.
I won't need the mic. You're fine. So my question is actually a more practical question.
Sure.
How do we equip ourselves to not freak out?
Practice.
Because we're gonna freak out.
Yeah, we are. Sure.
So
Sure.
do we make sure we just try to internalize it as much? Like, this is my freak out, but here's my stone cold face.
Sorry. Okay. I'll repeat it. I'll repeat it.
How do we not freak out?
Yeah, how do you practice, how do you get yourself to not freaking out? Because that is the thing. If my daughter came to me as 15 and says, Dad, I'm pregnant, or my son comes to me and says, I've killed somebody. I mean, what if that were to happen? We practice. We practice like crazy. Usually, a couple times a week, I will say, we'll play a game, try to make Dad's face red. Try to say something so embarrassing and something so scandalous that I will actually, my face will actually get red because what's happening inside is my heart's beating, that kind of thing. Try to embarrass me. Try to say something that gets me squeamish. And the more we practice that, the better I get at, okay, someday this might be real. So just that practice, it's just like the first responder class. It's like you have to literally be conscious. You literally have to tell yourself, don't panic. Because the more you're unprepared for something, the more panic you're going to be. Great question. Yes?
So to kind of answer your question, somebody told us several years ago, we have 7 children, somebody told us several years ago, tell your children that they need to have a safe talk.
Yes.
They've done something, say to them, you can come to me and say, Mom, I need to have a safe talk. That gives you time to be like, okay, she's gonna tell me something I don't wanna know, something that she's done wrong, something that's gonna make me angry. And then you have that, you can say to your child, great, I'm glad you came to me, give me a couple minutes. And then I can go step away and be like, okay, what's she gonna say? So I've had 2 safe talks in my parenting so far.
Thank you.
The first one, she called me on the phone and said, Mom, I gotta have a safe talk when you get home. So the whole time I'm like, she shaved her arms. That was what she felt she needed. She shaved her actual arms. And so I'm like, that was good. That was
Could have been the eyebrows.
That was a good warm up. The next safe talk was that our child had contemplated suicide. And so, but he came to us and said, I want to have a safe talk. And we're like, okay, let's have it. What do you got? And that, just by saying that, by them having the confidence, knowing that they can come to you, so that's kind of the fall softly. How can they land softly on you? By letting them know that you're not going to blow up, because my initial reaction is to blow. You did what? You shaved your arms? What were you thinking?
Right. How stupid.
Yeah.
Who else talked you into
You
this?
can't do that.
Yeah.
We shave under our arms, not on top of our arms. But by having the moment, I was like, okay, I can, whatever she's going to say, because we've also told our kids, you get pregnant, you get high, you get drunk, we're going to love you no matter what.
Yes.
And so just by them knowing that they have that safe place to land is huge.
I'm going to end with an example. So that drives that point home, and thank you for that. Are you available for the next couple weeks? I've got a few more presentations. So I don't know if you have heard that story in Marquette, March of 2022, so last year in March. There was a 17-year-old boy, straight A student, Dean's List, very involved in his community, homecoming king, played sports, all that kind of stuff. He gets a message on Instagram, this young blonde, who says, hey, I've seen you around town, you look cute, I'd like to get to know you. And he's just like, okay, all right, must be legit since, okay. I mean, people just don't do this, do they? So he's talking, he's interacting, a few weeks go by, a few months go by, and she sends him a nude pic of herself. And he's like, whoa, no, I didn't ask for that. I wasn't expecting that. And she's like, well, we've been talking. This is what people do now. People show each other stuff. So I took a picture and sent it to you. I thought it was okay. Oh, you're not a prude, are you? He's like, well, no. And she's like, well, okay, now you saw me, now I want to see you. And then something pinged in his brain. He's like, this sounds really scammy. Something's wrong here, because I've never even met you in person. You say you know all my friends, and you say all these things. Are you really like this, or are you just scrolling my feed thinking trying to give me that idea? So at a weak moment, she broke him down, and he finally took a picture of himself because he got so annoyed with all her messages. He took a picture of himself, sent it, and the next message that came back was, we need $1,000, or we're going to share this photo with your parents and all your friends on Instagram. And he said, I'm a 17-year-old kid. I've got $300. They're like, PayPal it over. So he PayPal's over $300. And he's like, okay, did you delete the message? Did you delete that picture? We're going to need that $700. We're going to stand firm at that $1,000. And he's like, oh, again, I don't know where I'm going to come up with this money. I'm not going to ask anyone for this. I'm already embarrassed and humiliated. His last message on planet Earth was, I guess you win. I'm going to go kill myself. 6 hours after the initial blackmail message, he was already dead. And the reason why his parents found out is because the people behind that shared the picture with them, even after he passed. These are the kind of people we're dealing with. So having that conversation with your kids may actually save their lives. And I don't say that hyperbolically. I mean, this is the kind of anxiety. This kid felt that it would be better if he's not here than have to deal with this embarrassment that he brought to himself and his family. So I would recommend, having these conversations. They can land safely with you. You're not going to get them in trouble. So I'll be available afterward too if anyone needs anything else. But I thank you so much for taking this attention with your kids. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you being here. Biggest thing I got away is relationship. Make sure you have relationship with God our Father and with your children. That's what the foundation is there. So thank you, Dan, very much. And like I said, he's available for questions if you'd like to come up and speak with him after our time here. And I just want to thank you all for your support and your concern of our children. And thank you for being here and taking time out of your busy schedules to be part of this. Thank you. And you follow them on Instagram. They have some great information. I know I follow, and there's updates and new things because it's always changing. So follow Protect Young Eyes. It's a very good, great resource.